I mean, honestly, I have nothing wrong with these YouTube videos I'm about to watch. They're personally not for me, but these videos.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Okay, that might have given like a little hint. Um, this. I'm sorry, guys. This is gonna. I'm so stressed out right now. It's currently 1 a.m. in the morning. I want to go to sleep, but this is like, why don't I? Because some of you guys are horror people. Look, I'm gonna try to venture out of my comfort zone. Snarled is a YouTube channel I really used to watch when I was in sixth grade. I haven't watched it since I was in like seventh, seventh or eighth grade. So it's gonna be rough because I'm gonna get addicted to it again, and I'm gonna have nightmares and like. Let's hope I don't get addicted again and start watching it. But you know what? We're gonna do it anyway. I'm looking at these thumbnails, and I'm already starting to regret it. I mean, honestly, just look at all these. I miss the old girl. Like we're gonna watch something scary. We're gonna watch something scary because that's the only one we can probably watch. We're not gonna watch any scary chats. Who's that? Who's the one girl that used to do the old ones? Let's try to find it.
Remembering to take care of ourselves.
Not her. Oh, she's good. She was good, but I want to find. Yes, this girl.
Hey, my darling.
No, not this girl. Oh, this music's so. Her.
Someone was outside of the cabin. Hey, I'm Sapphire.
Yeah, Sapphire's pretty good. So is this Sapphire the new one? I don't think so. The girl in the middle, I didn't really watch her. Okay, this is Stephanie. Looking at all these, this is gonna be the only one I'm considering. This is 23 minutes long. Absolutely not.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Jack the Ripper. Okay, I can watch that.
Terror in Whitechapel.
I can watch
Some
Jack
of
the
the
Ripper.
scariest stories are the
I cannot.
ones which
I cannot.
come from
I'm sorry, but I cannot watch this in full screen. I'm sorry, guys. I cannot watch this in full screen.
In 1888 in Whitechapel, a series of violent and disturbing murders of prostitutes kept the people of London in high alerts, and the police scratching their heads. Whoever was truly behind these crimes has never been discovered.
That's true.
Jack glanced up at the huge blood moon in the nighttime sky. Thankfully, there was plenty of cloud cover. Otherwise, his modus operandi of hiding in the shadows would prove impossible. He slunk through the alleyways quiet as a church mouse, sly as a fox. Whitechapel smelled as bad as you might imagine, and the dark corners where the woman waited for gentlemen to pay for some alone time were no exception. Jack stepped over a pile of rotting rat corpses. Had London learned nothing after the Black Death, he thought. He was careful to keep hidden for now, dressed to blend into the darkness, but these women were on high alert and quick to spook. The newspapers and the
I don't trust these videos, so make sure my closet is shut. I'm so scared. And I lock my door. And my window is closed. Okay.
rumor mills were busy. Talk of a serial killer preying on women meant only the most hardened and desperate were still flaunting their wares. Others, too afraid to become the next victim of the Ripper. There was not an abundance of peelers out at that time. Perhaps one uninformed officer who'd drawn the short straw, but members of the public were also taking extra care to look over their shoulder, especially upon seeing a gentleman in these unsavory parts so late at night. Although they wouldn't know he was wealthy and born of privilege, the leathery apron, covered in bodily fluids, was a giveaway. And there she was, his next target. He shivered with anticipation. There was a public house not too far from where she was loitering, in the hope that a chap who had drunk too much ale would take a fancy and offer her the penny she needed to rest easy in the local boarding house. She smiled a toothless grin and hitched her skirt a little higher, showcasing her grubby ankles. Jack could smell her from his hiding place in the shadows. 'Twas a pity the boarding house didn't also provide a bath. Still, once the majority of the patrons from the public house had stumbled home, Jack deemed it time. He crept out of the shadows, the clouds now amply covering the moon so that it was exceptionally dark. He slid over to the woman who was all too eager to join him in the alleyway. The lure of an actual bed, although it was shared and likely full of fleas overcoming any sense of danger. She followed him willfully to the dark corner, and he immediately reached into the front pocket of the apron, grabbing a hold of the cutthroat razor, and in one fluid and well-practiced motion, doing just that. The blade sliced her neck as if it were an onion, and she gasped in shock, trying to stem the flow of blood with her hands as he dealt the next blow, a punch to her gut that brought her to the ground. Jack reached down and tore at her dress. He believed her to still be alive as he made the first few incisions, then went to work. Whether she died of shock, pain, massive blood loss, or most likely all three, he didn't care. He stood up the open cavity of her body, steaming and stinking in the air. He could already see interested movement around her, vermin sniffing about, bold enough to breach the underground tunnels for fresh meat. Jack whistled as he left the park, his latest trophy inside the pocket of the apron, along with the razor. There was no one around, but even if there had been, they wouldn't question a butcher on his way to the slaughterhouse. He stashed his tools in plain sight and made his way stealthily back to the sort of neighborhood where everyone would be fast asleep in the 4-poster beds, sleeping soundly between silk sheets. He crept in through the servant quarters, and even they were not yet awake. He crawled into his own comfortable bed chambers and smiled, wondering how long it would be until the body was discovered. He could see the headline on the evening paper already. Jack the Ripper strikes again. Hi everybody, it's Stephanie, and I just wanted to
Holy
thank
moly.
Talkspace for being...
I thought that video was 10 minutes. This is very hard for me to watch. So I'm gonna do a really, really short one. Stranger Curse of Medusa. Yeah, that's like Medusa is like a mythical, so I can do that one. I'm sorry, guys, I'm getting real tame.
Markia, wanna hear something scary?
But,
The Curse of Medusa. Medusa was an ancient Greek gorgon with a head full of snakes. One look into her eyes would turn you to stone. Mortal men were terrified of her due to the curse, and she took great pleasure in delivering punishment to any who looked her way. Magdalena was ready to take on Manhattan. She rented a tiny apartment and found a job
What?
at an ad company. She quickly became friendly with a junior executive named Paxton McNamara. Pax was very handsome, and when he offered Magdalena a tour of the city, she was thrilled. He introduced her to restaurants, the Met, and hidden parks. Eventually, he led her to his plush apartment in the East Village.
Uh-oh.
All of her dreams were coming true. One early Saturday morning, Magdalena made coffee in Pax's apartment as he readied for a last-minute meeting at the office. When he was out the door, Magdalena dove back under the covers instead of leaving like usual. Within minutes of falling asleep, she was startled awake and screamed. There was a woman hovering above her with jet black hair and angry eyes. I am Adele McNamara, his wife, yelled the woman. Magdalena couldn't make sense of it. She had no idea Pax was married. I didn't know, Magdalena cried. Adele grabbed Magdalena's hand and sliced the palm with an ebony black blade, causing Magdalena to writhe in agony. Still holding her hand tightly, Adele began to whisper something in another language, and her eyes rolled back in her head. A lesson needs to be learned, Adele said before disappearing as Magdalena passed out. A few hours later, in a nearby coffee shop, Magdalena sat shaking, her hand wrapped in gauze. Pax walked over to meet her, knowing how much trouble he was in. The moment he laid eyes on her, he began to weep. Not from guilt, though, from the sight of Magdalena. Once mesmerized by her beauty, now when he looked at her, all he could see were dozens of writhing snakes swirling around her head. They were coming from her scalp. He tried to explain, but wouldn't make eye contact. Magdalena realized the waiter and the gentleman who entered the coffee shop had the same reaction. She was terrifying to every man in her presence. Pax apologized, and then he ran away like the coward he was. Magdalena stumbled home, heartbroken and afraid, men turning away in dread or disgust as she passed by. She reached her apartment and locked the door. Slid under the door was a notice of eviction for unpaid rent. A voicemail from work said that her affair with Paxton required her termination. Her bank account was nearly empty. For weeks, she wept in despair, knowing she'd have to leave. She'd secretly followed Pax home one evening and discovered the second apartment where he lived with Adele. With nowhere to go and little money, she grew desperate and went to see a woman named Lady Bardot, who dabbled in black magics. She no longer cared for Paxton, and low-key thought having men be terrified of her made her feel safe in a way. But her chosen profession required interaction with all genders, and one day she would want to re-enter the dating scene, so this curse must end. As soon as Magdalena entered, Lady Bardot could see what all the others were seeing. The only solution, she said as she handed over a dagger, was to cut the curse off at the root. Magdalena knew exactly what to do. That night, she watched Pax enter the apartment. She snuck in after him, and as he was unlocking the door, Magdalena pushed them both into the hallway, slamming the door shut. Before Pax could react, she took the dagger out, raised it up, holding it close to her own eye. In his panic, his eyes followed the dagger and finally made him look directly at Magdalena. She stared into his soul, focusing on her hatred for him and what she had become. In that moment, she felt what they all had seen. She felt the snakes around her face, writhing and hissing at Paxton. There, right before her, Pax turned to stone and then crumbled into dust. And just like that, Magdalena felt better. She wasn't sure if it was the magic or the revenge, but he could never cause such hurt from cheating again. She closed the door and made her way home. Early next morning, there was a knock on the door. It was the landlord. Through the peephole, he said there had been an error. Not only had her rent gone through for the previous months, but he also had a bouquet of flowers from someone congratulating her on replacing Paxton as a junior ad executive. She flung open the door, forgetting her curse. She froze, but he didn't flinch. She was back to normal. However, upon taking the bouquet and reading the note attached, her face grew more and more astonished. It read, "Congrats on the new job, and thank you for taking care of that side job I gave you. It turned out better than I could have hoped. A lesson needed to be learned." The note was signed by Adele McNamara, the late Paxton's new and apparently happy widow. I love to play Best Fiends when I'm on the go. It's become a way.
I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. That's gonna be it for today's reaction to Snarled. I'm never gonna do this again, by the way. So, you better appreciate this video, because I'm never doing this again. Like and subscribe if you hate NNS.